Just crossed over the 33 mark. October the 8th, 2024, 9:36 p.m. Mountain Time. Live until 11 or slightly after. I'll be opening up phones here in case anybody has any comments or complaints. 505-510-4226. You can also leave voicemails and I'll play them live. This song is The Edge is in Your Mind, Chief Crow. I'll put a link for your reference. You can put it on your bookmarks. And then the YouTube algo will feed you flat earth content. And you will become a flat earther because you'll catch the mind virus. That's what the media wants you to think. You catch anything. And Alex Jones is supposedly losing $1.5 billion he doesn't have to the Sandy hookers, which obviously he's complicit, right? He has to be. If you know anything about the story, there's no possibility in which he's not a part of it. So obviously that's a psyop. But you know who really took a huge financial hit for the truth? Or not even the truth. For raising a question? Shaq. Shaq took a $20 million hit just for suggesting that maybe we can't trust what we've been shown and maybe the earth isn't what they say. And he didn't say he was a flat earth believer, but he was raising the question. He lost 20 million. No lawsuit, no trial, no dodging it, no hiding assets. He lost business. So that's real. I wanted to start off talking about this. This is completely normal news to most people who don't read into things. They'll just kind of look and look away. Lisa Marie Presley kept dead son's body at the home for 2 months. And here's Priscilla Presley. Looks kind of like, in a way, I kind of think she looks like Morticia Adams as a redhead. And then there's her dead son, Ben, or Ben is what they call him. And, you know, I thought this is kind of an interesting story. I think they kept him for 55 days. It says they were just trying to decide whether to bury him in Hawaii or Graceland, but Memphis, is the estate where Elvis died, is the place. And she said, my house has a separate bedroom, and I kept Ben there for 2 months. There's no law in the state of California that says you have to bury someone immediately. Good to know. Lisa Marie writes, I found a very empathic funeral home director, and she said, we'll bring Ben to you. So a couple of points here. I'm just looking a little bit deeper into an already weird story. She kept him for 55 days. So 55 might be... No, that wasn't it. It was 2 months. 55 degrees. The room was kept at 55 degrees to preserve his body. So it's kind of cool. I'm assuming he was embalmed. He would have to be in order to be kept at home and to not degrade. But the other part of it that I thought kind of stood out to me is the name, the Ben. The word stuck out because that's his nickname. And we're always talking about Elvis, the Phoenix, and all this symbolism attached to him. Well, it turns out that in the creation myth of the here it is. The Egyptian religion has this, I think, the Ben mound. Thought it was some kind of a stone, basically a capstone. Finding lots of examples of it, various examples of this particular type of a capstone. So his nickname is somehow attached to this theme of death and resurrection, this Osiris worship. But anyway, I thought that was kind of unusual because we're talking about like Elvis, the king, and all this bizarre stuff around him, and the fact that she would keep the body around. So anyway, this was some form of ancient Egyptian religion. This was a mound that arose from the primordial waters. And this kind of reminds me of I think it was called Osiris Rex. And Osiris Rex went out to bust a rock. If you recall, it was this DART mission. And this rock that they were going to go hit was, let me see if I can pull this up. Osiris Rex. Just another example of how NASA is primarily an Egyptian mystery school. So they sent it out there to run into the Bennu rock. So Bennu. So I looked up Bennu, B-E-N-N-U, and this is some kind of a proto-phoenix. Like before the phoenix, you had the ancient Egyptian deity identified with the sun, creation, and rebirth, and the inspiration for the original Phoenix legends. Anyway, just these connections are all pretty consistent. Anyway, keeping her dead kid there, that's kind of bizarre. All right, let's see who's here. Let's go. American Fathers. This is where it's at. Messianic Charlatan. Armin Ree. Reverse History. Thanks for joining. Gematria 101. Elephant Tusk says there is no edge, Tim. You know, someone on Twitter said, because I was like, I don't believe in satanic ritual abuse. And they were like, you don't have enough evidence for that, but you believe we're on an infinite plane. And no, I don't believe that. I don't know. But if I don't accept the standard model, I'm left with question marks. But I pointed out to him, if you look at the general consensus among physicists who would know this stuff, the consensus is that the universe is flat and there is no edge. So it's kind of an infinite plane universe, like it or not. And eventually the Earth is going to be hit by a planet killer. It's going to get sucked into the sun. The universe is going to collapse on itself, and whatever happens, happens. But for the most part, all we're going to be left with is the infinite expanse of flatness forever. Like, that's the end here. So it's like it's the exception that we're on a spinning ball, or a spinning oblate spheroid, which is kind of unique in the universe if you think about it. You know, I hear people say, well, how can the Earth be anything but a perfect sphere, since everything up there is a perfect sphere? Good point, except the Earth is an oblate spheroid, according to the experts, and we don't have any examples of flying, floating, orbiting oblate spheroids. Find me one. All the planets as shown to us, even the stars, like that space tree, so they always show us these things that are just perfectly spherical. Or round, as Glubers say. I live on a round Earth. Why can't you say sphere? It's because they think in two dimensions when it comes to the picture that they've been shown. They just absorbed it. Their programming takes over. Round Earth, flat Earth. No, it's oblate spheroid. Ted Stryker says, so glad Tim does not read from a teleprompter. Oh yeah, then I would just keep repeating the last word again and again, like Kamala. She's like, 32 days until the election. 32. Yep, 32 days. 32 days until the election. It's like, what the hell? Now, was there some secret meaning? No, the volume's fine. If you think the volume's low, honestly, at this point, you can donate and I'll buy a new mic, but I don't know what else to do. It goes up to 100. But yeah, it might be a limitation of the hardware. But I could possibly talk louder. I don't know. But no, the volume is at 100. I checked it. And volume has always been a complaint since 2018. When I first started this, there was never an issue. In fact, it was too loud. It was very loud. And this was back when I used just a regular cheap desk mic. But I think that these various, I don't know. I think these various iterations of things like Skype and others have just gradually degraded on purpose. No, I know you're not trolling. Let's just ask a question here. If in chat, put a 1 if volume is too low. Put a 2 if it's normal. And if we get more 2s, then we'll just proceed as though nothing's wrong. If we get a lot of 1s, I'll look into it. It's still early, and we can reboot, but I definitely checked it. And Smarty Pants says, volume's fine, you can add a limiter and pull the main. See, I have the option here on OBS. I go into properties. So a lot of people are saying it's normal. I go into properties, and I cannot put it any higher than 100. It's pretty much stuck there. It could be a mic issue. Elephant Tusk says, I have my soundbar at 16, normally at 10. Well, we just want to make sure that we're not dealing with hardware issues. Not that I could fix it at this time. But this is kind of a low-budget operation anyway. We should expect that. You know, there's going to be some spelling errors in the first edition of The Insider, which I'm funding with Halloween art. I've been away from the office, I've been painting. Let me go ahead and pull that up right now. I'm doing a series of paintings inspired by, well, AI generated art. This is from DALL-E. So here's a couple of examples. This is how, since I apparently I'm unemployable for some reason, I'm seriously thinking I must give off some kind of mass shooter vibes. They wouldn't take me at the call center. I'm qualified for it, but they wouldn't take me. That's fine. No big deal. I'm just going to double down on eBay. So I went into DALL-E, and I had it render me a series of Halloween-themed pictures. Here's a witch in front of the moon holding a skull. Here's another witch with bats against the moon holding some type of a branch. So these aren't my images. They're assisted. But they are pretty good as far as compositions. So I'm working on a series of Halloween paintings. I have about 6 more at home I haven't listed yet. I'm going to list them tonight, all in a 24-hour auction. I think they're going to sell pretty well just because it's a timing thing. But anyway, I'll be putting a link there. And then also, if you go to the Ko-Fi shop, I have a limited series here of private commissions. I'm only going to do 10. And I think I sold 1. And basically, these are private commissions, watercolor based on AI art. And that has to be the source. I won't take photos. I'm not going to make it up from my imagination. Nope, it's going to be prompted images that I'll be copying here. So let's see. These are available until I sell out, but I will not be doing these again. I generally don't like doing private commissions, but I do like it if the ideas are good. And the images I've been getting from the DALL-E are pretty much top-notch. I like Diagram as well. Grok. Grok is surprisingly good. We could grok something really quick if you all want to grok. Pretty sure there's a reason for that dumb name. I think it's a sci-fi thing. But this is Elon Musk's grok. We'll go ahead and test it out here. So we'll put in the prompts here. Cyborg penguin holds a boombox and rides jet-powered hoverboard. Just give it a moment. And it's relatively unfiltered. This one looks kind of cartoonish, not too bad. I'd probably cut the wings off, the bird wings. But I could render it again and add a couple more details. For example, change it to maybe steampunk or sci-fi or possibly just hyper-realistic detailed. Armin Reese says, the only issue with the volume is the difference between your voice and the clips you play. The clips are loud. I can lower that easily. I'll just set that up here. Okay, let's continue here. No, everything's fine as far as the audio. I think we just want to make sure it's good before we start taking calls and stuff. It was really bad a few weeks ago, but I think we've overcome most of those issues. Gremlins. Okay, we were talking about Lisa Marie Presley keeping her kid for 2 months, and the Ben stone, a pyramid or a cone-shaped rock. Some think it was a meteorite. Really, there's no Muslims running circles around it, but it may have been a meteorite. But it's this supposed pyramid stone that formed the center of this creation myth. But yes, some kind of pyramid capstone thing, Illuminati occult worship, all the usual. Trump has close relations with Putin, many phone calls in past few years. This just seems to me a buildup of the whole thing about Trump working with Putin, and when they do the whole nuking of the West, Tom Clancy style, it's all been built into the narrative. And this reminds me of something. I should have jumped right into this. Very important development. A couple of things. Francis Ford Coppola compares the fall of Rome to current American politics, and he actually said it's going to happen in a few months. He said this movie is Megalopolis is prescient about America as Rome because it's going to happen in a few months. Now, I played this clip last week, and I have this clip for later. But I didn't know this, but Robert De Niro was with him, and Spike Lee as well. Spike Lee is highly significant in terms of metascriptors. I would suggest that if anybody could be blamed, or not blamed, but credited with filming and directing the George Floyd Derek Chauvin psyop, it was likely Spike Lee, and he was there with De Niro. So that's highly significant given the context. But this is what I came across yesterday. So at the last rally, and JL called about this, at 6:11, Donald Trump had a moment of silence, and it was exactly 84 days. So 6:11, 84, I mean, these numbers are so consistent. Anybody who's ever listened to JL has to admit now that he's right, that he's picked up on some significant patterning where 6:11-84 is the theme connecting the head wound and the future nuking of Seattle. And here we are at 6:11. They're having this ritual 84 days later, but there was another detail to this, and I'm going to play it first. It has to do with they have Ave Maria sung at that time.
Join me in a moment of silence.
Creepy bell. Okay, now why is this song significant here? The song is significant here because if we go back to the shooter, Thomas Crooks, Thomas Crooks, who has been described by the media multiple times as an enigma, has a curious resemblance to the Riddler, the young Riddler. So we've made these Joker connections with the shooters, but Thomas Crooks looks like the Riddler. The Riddler is named Enigma, Edward Nigma. And in multiple headlines, would-be Trump assassin Thomas Crooks remains an infuriating enigma. Intelligent loner. Can the U.S. break into Thomas Crooks' encrypted message? But they describe him as an enigma. Riddler's name is Enigma. There's the physical resemblance. And then finally there's this. In Batman, Riddler sings Ave Maria in the hospital. Says it's sung by the Riddler at Arkham Hospital. His reason for singing the song is one of vengeance, a theme that weaves through Batman. So they're singing Riddler's song after this Thomas Crook Riddler connection. We've already established this. So to me, this is just another layer to the story. It was a moment of silence for the fireman who was fake killed. Armin Reese says Seattle was already 311. They won't repeat. I'm not so sure. I'm really not, for a few reasons. Although it seems to fit in most ways. And there's no reason to think that they're going to represent things on the world stage literally the way they do it in the movies. So perhaps the nuking of Seattle was just the ground zero pandemic. Perhaps the alien invasion is just the dissolution of borders. And maybe the head wound of Trump was just going to be a nick on the ear. But I don't know. It just seems like the story's ongoing. And this is something else too. Our model of examining the media, of looking at it as concerted between the entertainment and the real news, we're not wrong. Our model is accurate. It is the right methodology for approaching this. And we're able to predict predictive programming. I was able to walk into Megalopolis knowing that it would have nothing but connections between concurrent future news events and other movies. And I walked in, and from the very start, it was Neo. It was Dark City. It was, and it being Francis Ford Coppola, it has Trump elements, has Trump predictive programming proxies. It has the head wound situation, and then it happens to be the same guy who's the face of White Noise, which represents East Palestine and the airborne event. And of course, Megalopolis is all about this airborne event, this Russian satellite falling in 9/11ing New York. Gematria says Trump is on Enigma magazine 2015. Ooh, nice. Word assassination is on the cover because of its Chris Kyle article. We were talking about Chris Kyle the other day, the template for Kyle Rittenhouse, and he supposedly went down to the Mercedes-Benz Superdome, climbed on the roof, and started shooting people when they were looting, and everyone thought he was a huge hero. It's amazing how times have changed. Kyle was born too late. But Chris Kyle's dead, and so he can't be held accountable for that. And his other exploits, which I happen to think are all fake. I don't even believe his body count. He probably didn't kill anybody, to be honest. There was this theory that Thomas Crooks was a flat earther, and the reason he shot Trump in the ear and not the temple is that he didn't account for the rotation of the earth because he doesn't believe the earth rotates. Wouldn't that be a twist? Elephant Tusk says, Tim, did you catch the latest episode of The Penguin, in particular the graphic scene where the waters become tsunami-like as it destroyed Gotham? Yeah, see, that's a flashback to 11/5. Election Day, when they flood the polls, and then it's underwater on 11/6. So that was a great scene, by the way. Penguin makes up for Joker. If you didn't like Joker 2, watch The Penguin, because the Gotham universe is still like a great place for storytelling. It's not totally destroyed, although Joker 2 was I mean it does contain I think a lot of predictive programming, concurrent and otherwise, but I just wonder, was it just they made Joker so pitiful, so much self-pity, and I don't know if I can really follow that. Like, I get it, he's a victim of society, he was underserved, he fell through the cracks, but there's a point where I don't know, I don't like his attitude compared to the Penguin. But you're right about that. And the Penguin came out. I mean, the Penguin series just came out here at the same time, so it's got to be relevant. But I want to point out that the flooding takes place on Election Day 11/5, and Election Day is going to be on 11/5. But the movie came out, Batman, where the flood is shown, and it's 2022. The Riddler's people break a dam and they flood the polls, and then 11/6, Gotham's underwater. So a couple of things here, though. 11/6, 6/11, it's all connected to this domestic violent extremist attack, this 9/11ing situation. But since it's domestic, it's 6/11 as opposed to external 9/11. That's how it's been in all the symbolism. This goes pretty deep, but during 2022, during the midterms, there was a slogan that the GOP had, flood the polls. So that was foreshadowing for 2024 likely. Observing Reality says Joker 2 was an op. Some people think that it was iconoclasm, that Joker became too powerful of a symbol representing some type of genuine grievance and they had to destroy him. Freddie says, better turn your TV off. I kind of think the answer here is to study it intently, but like an alien anthropologist. Just don't take it literally. Like you're studying a strange foreign cult, which is what we're actually doing. You get out of a cult, then you figure out it's a cult. But before you get out, you don't really know you're in one, especially one that's big. And this is a world-spanning cult. Look, I'm not hyperbolic when I'm saying that mass media has supplanted religion. It is, in fact, the one world order religion. The mass-mediated worldview represents a monopoly on worldview by a power elite. It has not only replaced all the previous religions, it encompasses them. It was designed to. Like, what would it look like if mankind at large were conquered and then put under mind control submission? What would the world look like? It would look like this. Like, they won a long time ago. And the difference between the programmed and the programmers is very minimal. The programmers are only let in on certain aspects of the big secret of the news bent reality. But here we are, deprogrammed, and I think we have a more objective view of things. So I don't think we should turn off the TV, but just recognize what it is. Putting your head in the sand is not an answer here. Rather, it's a way to become more or less subjective or subjected to the will and the whims of the masses, because you won't have enough information to resist what they're going to comply with. Ted Stryker has brought a basket of blue wrenches. Thank you, appreciate that. Elephant Tusks, Lean Dion, AJ206, Plain Decoded, Angst G, Anufo, Jordan. Lots of people now. Blue Wrench members. Oliver, T-Rex in Space, Reverse History. Isabel Ann, Travis Cloud, Me and My Drone, Nicotromus, Scott, Rankton, IFEPBase 73, Multigrain, FMGR, Ryler 05, Jennifer Reeves. Awesome. Appreciate that very much. There will be more content coming for members. Working on some shorts. Armin Reese says, Joker 1 and 2 were good as movies, just not as Batman movies. Yeah, I think the bad reviews might just come down to misplaced expectations. You watch a Batman movie, and you expect, violence and action. But this was more of a psychological drama. And I think that if you're interested in the subjects of toxic relationships, or perhaps if you're in one, you might find some value in looking at the relationship between Joker and the Harlequin. There might be some use there for perhaps examples you could draw from, I suppose. All right, let's see here. Flood the polls, old slogan. Yeah, well, they pushed it in 2022, and the flooding of the polls was the main theme in the Batman. Elephant Tusk says, do you think the tsunami flooding in the Penguin is concurrent programming with the upcoming hurricane? Yeah, I would say so. I would say so. And I would also say this. They have such control over media that you can have a hurricane exaggerated by several degrees and the public might not know. They can overhype it, they can exaggerate, they have every incentive to exaggerate. You think they won't lie about the weather? They lie about murdering kids in classrooms routinely. So they will take a storm and they will inflate it in any way possible. We've seen many reporters leaning into fake wind. We've seen reporters basically kneeling in puddles, pretending like they're in a flood. So I don't trust any of it. I trust people on the ground, but I don't trust secondhand accounts by these fake truthers, these crisis actors who are talking about how FEMA is the bad guy, we have to resist FEMA. There are just so many clowns on both sides of this trying to politicize it. So I'm just saying this big hurricane thing, yeah, sure, it's real, but there's some elements of it here where I don't trust the reportage. Lesko says, victims of society themes are tired. Well, you know where it's all coming from. It's coming from the place of developing sympathy for the Marxist class warfare paradigm. And that's what Joker represents, sadly. Joker is an anti-hero only if you're Antifa. Only if you really embrace this victims of society theme. Although I should say, far right are also victims of society. You do have this aspect of, so I was thinking about this today, how normies, just normal people, regular people on the left and right, they don't really have a lot of hate or any kind of victim consciousness or a scapegoat. Because to be a victim, you have to have somebody that you're calling your oppressor. So in Joker's case, he's oppressed by society. Riddler, oppressed by society. And it just seems like on the far left woke town, they're blaming systemic racism and whites. So you have the anti-white rhetoric, and you could call it hatred. It's there. But it's only in woke town, far left. Normie lefties don't hate whites. Similarly, most right-wing people who are normies, they support Israel. But it's the fringe far right that gets into the anti-Semitism. So I think that there's a dialectic here set up with scapegoats for the people on the fringe. And they each scapegoat the other side. And neither scapegoat's really valid, but it gives them each a reason to exist. And they base their whole existence on it, and it excuses everything. It's not new. I call it CJT. You got CRT, critical race theory, and critical Jew theory. And these are scapegoat narratives for the fringes. But it's not, I say it's the fringes. It's not the normies that buy into this stuff. The normies aren't all that agitated. And I think that's how it's supposed to work. The political horseshoe, I think, is designed to make it comfortable to stay closer to the middle and to make it shrill and unappealing and toxic on the fringes. That way, only the people who are really committed and who can stand that stay there. It's meant to be repulsive. I think we'd all agree that the politics of the Proud Boys and the politics of Antifa are repulsive and toxic and psychotic. Smarty Pants says, internet equals brain rot, TV equals brainwash. No, the difference is this. Just to get back to that really quick, it has to do with whether you're an active or a passive perceiver. Mainstream media consumers are passive. Alternative media consumers, woke down and truthers, are also passive. They just passively accept from their chosen sources. But there's not any kind of active parsing of what's being presented other than forming opinions, but they accept the reality of what's presented to them on the screen. That's brain rot, that's brainwashing, that's immersion into the illusion. But the active perception of media is recognizing it for what it is and then rejecting every extraordinary claim that's not attended by evidence. Recognizing rhetoric and propaganda and psyops. Because the people who don't look at it actively are passively accepting every single psyop as real. There's nothing they can't be made to believe. It's like there's a portal that world government has into every person's mind, that screen. If you look at it like this, the screen is like the screened reality. Everything that is filtered that makes it to that level is essentially the Bible of this one world religion. This big black monolith, which is a perfect symbol. Jordan says, I met this chick at Applebee's who knew your channel. Oh, interesting. How did you bring it up? And did you, whatever that, there's something censored here. I met this chick? I don't know. Anybody here good at Wheel of Fortune? 6-lettered word ends in ED. All right, we're moving on. I have about a few other notes here. Just another connection. Again, Trump doing this bizarre ritual 84 days after his head wound, 6:11 p.m. And the Riddler's theme song as a villain, you know, he sings the song, is performed there in Butler. I like how Trump said that Corey had the best seats in the house. It's like he's the guy that got shot. It's hilarious. Now, this is not a huge deal, but I'm going to just point it out. Because Hopium Slayer, Sir Escanor, I like his work. He exposed Donnie Darkened as a pro-Trump guy. So the big channel calling Trump the Antichrist is actually a huge MAGA guy. He's friends with, or he's been associated with Donald Trump Jr. So someone who's close to Trump, close to Candace Owens, big-time influencer, far-right MAGA guy, made a living off it for years, is also the Trump is the Antichrist person who gets on Tim Pool. So that guy was exposed by Hopium Slayer. Well, Hopium Slayer shared this today, and this is just, to me, this is just a byproduct of passively accepting everything that's contrarian to the mainstream. He says it's all actors and lies, political theater. Like, this doesn't add anything. This is a picture that shows Musk taller than Trump and J.D. Vance taller than both of them. And it says J.D. Vance is 5'7". Trump is 6'3". Musk is 6'1". Therefore, we can conclude that it's all a show. Like, this is not good information. It's not good evidence of anything. And we don't know enough about this picture to say this is some kind of a smoking gun. But I'm noticing this thing happened before with Matt Gaetz, where there are some politicians who lie about their heights, and there are others who've had their heights changed, or they're referencing some hockey player who's not, obviously not the same person, and somehow it gets picked up and attached to them. So Matt Gaetz is not 5'7". I was trying to figure out if he had a short photographer or if he was photoshopping. Matt Gaetz is not 5'7", and J.D. Vance is not 5'7". I did a little bit of research on this just to kind of correct him. And I'm not trying to be nitpicky. But if you're going to present yourself as some kind of paragon of trutherism, and then you're not going to vet information and you're just going to share it, that's one thing. But I'm just not going to be able to take you seriously as a source. And then what's worse is they never correct it. They mock the people who try to correct them. And that sounds to me like mainstream media. How are truthers any better? Mainstream media, you correct them and they mock you. You're a tinfoil hatter, etc. Infowars to be auctioned off. Just mark your calendar if you're interested in this purchase on November the 10th. Yes. Alex Jones will no longer control the company he built, and this will bring the families closer to the goal of holding him accountable. But what it says here is, according to the Texas judge and his order here, Infowars and Free Speech Systems, the parent company, is going to be sold off on November 10th at an auction. Some people think Musk is going to buy it and hand it back to him. I don't think so. But this is fake. Everyone should know here that Alex Jones is a actor in this play. This was always the setup. Okay, let's see here. Smarty Pants says, are you sure she wasn't an Agent Smith? Are you referring to the Applebee's person? Applebee's is the place that has all that stuff hanging on the walls. Like somebody's shed was just unpacked and just randomly nailed up on the walls. I never understood that. Now this picture has gone viral. Have you seen this picture? This is Donald Trump against the mic, and Musk is behind him jumping and throwing his hands up. A lot of people said he looks like Molech or Hiram Abiff giving the hailing sign of distress. He's got the pentagram. So what gives? What is this? What does this mean? And I know there's something to it. Like, so to me, if you want to be consistent with the framing of the head wound as relevant to the Masonic assassination story of Hiram Abiff, it does happen to be the case that the last thing that happens is Hiram raises his hands and he says, "Is there no help for the widow's son?" It's the hailing sign of distress. And then he gets whacked on the head with a gavel, like the judge in the Joker. So the idea that Trump got his head wound here, and this sign is being thrown, like hands up, don't shoot, is also a Masonic reference. Hands up, don't shoot, Michael Brown, that whole, was it Charlottesville? So this is probably not a coincidence, but I was looking closer at this image, and guess who shot it? And it has tens of millions of views. Douglas Mills, New York Times. Douglas Mills. Now, the significance of him, he's the one who took the photo of the bullet whizzing by Trump's head. Additionally, he's the one who took the photo of Secret Service whispering into George Bush's ear on 9/11 that the World Trade Center has been attacked. So you have a connection here. Same photographer, 9/11, assassination attempt, whispering by the ear, and now this. And some said that this may be the most consequential image of the election. Musk jumping behind Trump. Let's see. Elon Musk leaps into action as a Trump surrogate. Social media users dub Musk as energetic and cringe. He's cringe retaining. And that's not a bad thing today. Elon Musk's giant leap. When one of the richest men in the world made a surprise cameo at a Trump rally, he did so with the gusto of a meme. Elon Musk captured jumping on stage. So this is Rocket Man. And JL did say weeks ago, he said when Trump's in Butler on 10/5, there's going to be something with Rocket Man. And he talked about Elton John, which is also interesting considering Elton John owns the Falling Man 9/11 photo, speaking of iconic photos. But yes, Elon Musk literally jumping for joy to support Donald Trump. Why is this such a big deal? They wouldn't be plastering it out here if it didn't have some significance. I don't think there's any coincidences on the world stage. And then his mother's getting into it. Musk's mom encourages illegal voter fraud. She says, on election day, have 10 fake names and go to polling booths. And I think he's asking, or he's offering $47 for everyone to sign up for the NRA or something. The Democrats have given us another option, Musk said. You don't have to register to vote. You can have 10 fake names, go to 10 booths, vote 10 times. 100 votes, not illegal, work the system. Musk said, it is super important to get your friends and family to register. Although readers have suggested that it is in fact illegal. One more thing on Elon. This was posted by Messianic Charlatan. Did you know Diddy helped Elon Musk buy X? Elon said it. I don't know if you know this, but Puff is an investor in Twitter. He's a good friend of mine. We text a lot. Jeffrey Epstein was in regular contact with Elon's brother. This is all just guilt by association. I find the P. Diddy stuff more believable than the Epstein stuff for a lot of reasons. But the Diddy stuff is really like disturbing. Like this is evil villain type stuff. Like throwing some kind of drug enhanced oil on someone. Like so through skin contact they just lose the ability to stand up and control themselves. Just insane. Freddie says the Antichrist is powering up Milton. Yeah, I thought of John Milton, Paradise Lost, but no, I'm still not even convinced that it's at what they say. They say Category 5. I'm thinking they're exaggerating. These are the same people who want to tell us that the ocean levels are rising. Lane Dion said, Tucker asked Elon if Trump seemed like someone who had survived 2 assassination attempts, and he said no. Yeah, and they laughed about it, didn't they? Seemed like an inside joke. Yeah, I got a lot of duper's delight out of that. They're all in the club. But this Diddy stuff is either real and sick and it's going to bring a lot of people down, or no one's going to care after the election and it's just salacious propaganda. Here's an example just of why I would say so. Monsters Ball 2001. This is the scene where Diddy is in jail. So it's not like this hasn't been predicated by the usual predictive programming.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You got home.
Now, I haven't seen Monsters Ball, so I don't know how much of this is relevant. Let me see if any commenters have anything to add on this. Okay, Monsters Ball literally. Bro, this is his life right now. Crazy how life go, says Chris Dorcas. Well, it's not crazy how life goes. It's
we deserve to feel
life imitates psyops, and the psyops imitate art. So if you get that sequence, we were prepared for this. Rip Heath Ledger. Now, did Diddy do that one? Has he been blamed for that? Because that would be interesting considering how he's been told by Warner Brothers not to wear the Joker costume. This scene prepared him for real life, says Borad. Art imitates life again, says Ryan will do it. No, again, we have to amend this. Because the art isn't imitating life, this precedes life. But again, what we're seeing, if it's preceding it, it's less likely that the art is prophetic and more likely that it's predictive or foreshadowing as a literary technique, something that's already planned to happen. So it's, if anything, I would say life imitates psyops to some degree. But for the most part, psyops are all based in the art. It precedes the art because they want to reach you subconsciously first. But I don't attribute any reality to this Diddy story yet. And a lot of it's just truther fan fiction. Like I've seen these accounts of how Justin Bieber's like a martyr and a victim, and he's been trying to tell us, pray for Justin Bieber. I'm like, is that even real? These are the same people who, from 2016 to about 2023, until this Bieber thing with Diddy came up, QAnons were obsessed with Britney Spears, and they watched all her videos where she's in her bikini just dancing all the time, and they would analyze these videos thinking she's sending us a signal. The deep state's about to fall. Britney's going to blow the whistle on the industry. Nothing came of it. They were just following and believing in their own fan fiction. So I'm not inclined to believe this. I'm just going to go with presumption of innocence. The allegations are sick, though. But is it any sicker than what's in Monsters Ball? Gary Ho said, I can picture all three of these men in a freak-on party with Holly Berry and the Olsen twins. Rip Heath Ledger. I believe there's a reason he overdosed. This is fan fiction. This guy can imagine a freak-on party with Halle Berry and the Olsen twins. I won't and I can't imagine that. But this is the stuff they'll talk about. And then they'll say, pray for the Olsen twins. It's like, okay, this is a bizarre cult. This is crazy, 2024. A lot of people are saying this is predicted. Look, I can't believe this predicted the future. Larry Marshall says, I'm watching the scene now. Art imitates life. It's hard to watch the scene as a kid, but now it ends up happening to him. Real life now. Diddy do it. Damn Diddy. I think the producer was on a freak out with Diddy. One of the most somber and depressing movies I've ever seen. The scene didn't age well. Puffy's acting stinks. I would disagree if he's still acting, if he's playing a role. But a lot of people seem to think that he had something to do with Heath Ledger's death, which is strange. The scene was filmed in the actual death house of the Louisiana State Penitentiary, Camp F. Neep says Heath Ledger's still alive. Okay, anyway, we'll move on. It looks like a lot of people are noticing this coincidence. They just don't know how to process it. They're recognizing a coincidence, but this is another question. I had some notes on this, actually, I wrote down today about coincidence. Okay, so coincidences do happen. There are coincidences. There are coincidences that involve no intentionality. But then there are meaningful coincidences, as we would describe foreshadowing. In a book, you do have meaningful coincidences written into the script. It's a literary technique. Allusions and references. Like, for example, when we talk about predictive programming, we're talking about something in a movie that is alluding to something in real life. And it wouldn't be all that remarkable if they were alluding to things that already happened. But we're looking at it in this reverse order where movies are alluding to and referencing future events, things that haven't happened yet. Things that weren't even in the realm of possibility yet, as far as like the examples of Trump existing in predictive programming as what I call proxies, predictive programming proxies in movies. You have various characters in movies who represent Trump in his present incarnation. Now, these are meaningful and intentional coincidences. You have synchronized events. Trump gets his ear pierced by an AR-15. The same day, you see a movie poster for Thine Ears Shall Bleed. And Captain America's trailer comes out, and the president, Harrison Ford, gets shot at and survives. You have the character who represents Trump, the Homelander, in The Boys, survives where someone's assassinated. He has blood on his face, looks like Trump. They changed the title of the episode. It's so close to reality. We have so many examples of predictive programming that we can only conclude that these are intentional coincidences. And this is where, for years, people who paid too close attention were getting lost. They were thinking, okay, these can't be mere coincidences, therefore it's a higher power. These can't be mere coincidences, therefore we're dealing with something supernatural. Man couldn't do it. It's one of their refrains. Man couldn't possibly have done this. And my pushback has been, this is a divine fallacy, and it prematurely rules out what could be the real explanation. And my explanation here is this. When we're looking at news events that correspond to something in entertainment, like Monsters Ball, preceding this thing with Diddy, to me, this is organized and meaningful communication. This is history in the making. it's likely fake. It's likely scripted. And when I say scripted, it's not like one individual's psyop in isolation. It's not a hoax. It's actually integrated into the bigger picture. So I say metascript. Metascript would encompass all the movies, all the books. Like I'm talking about all the mainstreamed stuff, not independent stuff that's not independent. And this would include also the news events and how it all exists in the same fictional universe. You know how you have like the Superman universe, you know, these comic book universes, Lord of the Rings, the J.R.R. Tolkien universe. These are internally consistent worldviews or fictional universes, and the mainstream media presents us with one. In our shared fictional universe, planet-killing asteroids exist, climate change is a fact, bowl-cut shooters exist, nukes are real, and there's a whole list of things that I would call hyperstitions that we just include in our general consensus worldview. And anything that is coming through the mainstream box is going to reinforce that. So the fact that you have Monsters Ball, highly predictive of what's going on now, it's less likely to be a coincidence that's unintentional and a real coincidence, and it's more likely to be an intentional alignment, aligning past, present, fiction, and reality. And that's one of the messages in the new Joker movie, Joker 2. The world's a stage. And the world is a stage at times when they focus on it, when they create or manufacture an event. And this gets people confused. So a lot of people think, oh, we're living in a simulation because there's so many coincidences, a higher powers at work. And that's the same flaw in logic in assuming that holy books are divinely inspired or that God wrote them. Like maybe you can believe it's divinely inspired if you want to, but you have to admit that a man put pen to paper. Many believe that Aleister Crowley's book, Book of the Law, was channeled from some Egyptian god. I think it was more likely a creative exposition from that perspective in a form of method acting while he was high on cocaine. I'm not going to jump to it was divinely inspired. And when it comes to media, if you assume that these coincidences are not coincidences because they can't be, or you arrive at the conclusion, you're right, but you're wrong if you assume it couldn't have originated from man. These are intentional coincidences, and it's almost better to say foreshadowing, media foreshadowing, than predictive programming, because it really ties it in to the literary concept, which is what we're talking about. We're talking about literature. Foreshadowing in literature is common, but we're talking about history in the making as they write it. They wrote our history in advance, and they're acting it out scene by scene on the world stage. Elephant Tusk says they're saying the song Baby is about the baby oil. Yeah, now that I've heard that, Justin Bieber, where he's singing baby oil, it sounds like he's saying baby oil. So the whole thing about the several tons of baby oil at Diddy's house is that they filled it with some kind of drug and they sprayed on the victim and the victim is incapacitated. That's evil villain type stuff. Like, if that's true. Freddie says the whole Diddy thing is a diversion and should be ignored. Roxy says Justin is a narcopath. S. Baldwin is keeping his poor daughter there. Yeah, I don't know what to believe about Justin Bieber. I don't believe that he is playing the role of The Weeknd and The Weeknd doesn't exist. I don't believe that The Weeknd is a mask and it's some kind of alter ego and that Justin Bieber is playing dual roles. I don't believe that. And Super Recognizer did a deep dive on this, and he checked their tour dates to find out if this was possible. And he noted, though, that it is interesting to note that The Weeknd performed at the Super Bowl with a lot of clones of himself undergoing plastic surgery with their heads wrapped in bandages. Like, that's kind of strange. And you can find SNL skits. There's some skit where Justin Bieber has like multiple versions of himself around. So Super Recognizer ruled out the possibility it's the same person just based on tour dates, unless you're willing to entertain that maybe you have somebody choreographing the same way, singing the same way, lip syncing, wearing a mask as Justin. Maybe Justin Bieber doesn't exist. Is that where we're at? We got there with Epstein. Like, is this guy CGI? Does he exist? Yeah, he exists. You can see him dancing with Donald Trump, hanging out at these various parties with Trump. He exists. Ghislaine Maxwell exists. She photobombed Musk at a Vanity Fair event. You know, Ghislaine Maxwell, one of her greatest achievements, according to some article I read, she slept with JFK Jr., which is kind of funny considering the whole QAnon movement is about JFK Jr. is going to stop the deep state from trafficking people and expose this stuff. And look, that never happened. We're running up on an election, and all these promises are being made. The world's going to change. There's going to be an awakening. I saw some propaganda today that Trump's going to pay all your bills through something called Gesara. This is all a repeat from 8 years ago. It's ridiculous. I'll go ahead. Here's the thing. So this guy's name is Mr. Poole. So Mr. Poole is trending. Psyopsicals reported this. He's making a crypto prediction to the Q crowd. He said, emergency transmission. Trump is going to tweet, my fellow citizens, the storm is brewing, and Gesara and Nessara will be activated. This is like universal basic income. The military will get rid of the cabal, get rid of the governments, and arrest 500,000 sealed indictments. 7 trumpets, the EBS text message will be sent to everyone's phone, and the world military will shut down the media, the internet, and all the TV programs. This is not new. They're expecting this now, any day now. I guess within 2 weeks is what they usually say. They've been chasing this carrot on a stick for 8 years under the promise that at some point the government's going to pay all their bills. That's what the Great Awakening comes down to. There are people in Canada who stopped paying their bills because the queen of QAnon said, don't pay your bills. Mizell says, I can't believe folks still believe in Gesara. It's not even new. This thing's been around since the 90s. Like, there are people who will say to you, I don't hear this so much anymore because I push back on it. Like, oh, you know, you can just take your social security number to the bank and cash out $9 million because you're traded on the stock exchange. And you just got to go tell them that you're a sovereign citizen. And it's like, well, when have any of these people saying these things done it? Like, let's say you go to the bank, get your money, and then I'll follow you. I'll wait in line behind you, but you first. They never do it. I had this one caller, he's like, you're not a real truther because you have a driver's license and a license plate. Like, real truthers, they're sovereign. They don't need those government documents. It's like, I'll get my car booted. I can't just go park at the apartments without a license plate with up-to-date registration. But he's like, well, then you're just a hypocrite. So I asked him, does your car have a license plate? He's like, yeah. Like McToon. He's like, you don't believe in the space station, just go outside and look at it. Just use the app. It's easy. Like, have you done it? No. Oh, the queen of QAnon is out in Canada, Queen Romano. And she claims that she's the queen of QAnon. There's actually a king of QAnon, which I thought was funny. His name is Tucker. Not Tucker Carlson, but there's a King Tucker. And then it's like this Game of Thrones going on. And there's Queen Didulo. Yeah, King David Carlson says he has a few million people to take out. And then you have the QAnon Queen. And they try to take it global, where they're each claiming their realms. So the QAnon Queen tried to go global. Here she is. Her RV's been chased out of a few villages. So it says here, wearing a Florida Gators t-shirt, an Arizona man in his mid-40s is trying to convince hundreds of thousands of conspiracy theorists watching his live stream that he's the real leader of the U.S., King Carlson. Okay, I thought it was King Tucker. It's King Carlson. King Carlson explains that he has a few million people to take out before he's done with his plan, installing QAnon kings and queens across the world. We have managed to infiltrate large portions of the world's population and are ready to cut the head off the snake in many places of the world. We're catching up. He's the king of America. She's the queen of Canada. Romana is a QAnon influencer with a sizable number of people who believe that she's the ruler of Canada, and they're going to fight the cabal who control the world and release extraterrestrials with healing powers. Some experts have described it as a cult. I'm glad we have experts to let us know this. Like, okay, so the Queen of Canada, who's going to beat the cabal of Satanists and reveal the aliens with healing powers, is a cult leader. Thank you for letting us know. Carlson's subjects are fringe groups within a fringe group within a fringe group. It's a Russian doll of bewilderment. And it's led to people believing a middle-aged man in a small room in Arizona has the biggest politicians and celebrities about to be executed and replaced. This was profitable. These people made some money. I mean, Queen Didelot's RV is nice. She's traveling in style, and she doesn't have to pay for anything. Because instead of paying their bills, people are sending money to her with the promise that they're going to get their money back with Nasara and Gassara. The Incompletist said, October 12th, Crowley's birthday is shaping up to be quite the day. Hurricane Milton, Paradise Lost, big NATO meetup at Ramstein, Yom Kippur. Good connections. Copacetic Marcus Goldfinch is the Q Queen. Marcusa Goldfinch. Yeah, Marcus Goldfinch is the biggest QAnon influencer in the White House press corps. You know how many people are going to be mad when they find out that the White House press corps has had amongst them a major QAnon influencer? Look, even if he's not Q, and he is, but let's just erase that, because I think the story is too big for a lot of people to believe, and I understand, but I have facts and receipts. But one of the facts here is that a top Q influencer doesn't get much higher than this guy. This person travels on Air Force One, that he's in the White House press corps. That fact should just make a lot of people mad. White House press corps fighting misinformation, the insurrectionists lying about them, riling up mobs against them, and one of the lead insurrectionists is among them. Just right there in plain sight. Smarty Pants says, how did we end up the normal ones? That's why we're the most hated. Yeah, it's kind of fascinating how the people who see through are hated. And as much as I rip on trutherism, I don't have a problem with truthers. I understand why they get there. They get there because they know the screen is a liar. The masses have their nose pressed up against the screen, and that's how they perceive the world. They live in this fictional universe. And so the truthers are the people who say, I can't believe this. This has got to be some kind of a deception. And it has to be, because it's framed by this worldview monopoly. So the truthers have the right instincts. They know this can't possibly be the whole picture. It represents somebody's special interest. But their problem is that they look at the screen, they look at the projected worldview, and they add on to it. That's called MSM+. So to explain the gaps in the story, they add stuff in. And everything they add is one step further from truth. The skeptical approach is to step away from the screen, not to go deeper into it, not to add onto it to make it make sense. It's like excusing somebody's lies, adding on to it, giving them benefit of the doubt. That's the wrong answer. What you have to do is you have to step back and subtract the unverifiables. You should be socially distanced from media. You shouldn't be metaverse dominant, but rather step back into the meatverse. Case in point, this is 9mm SMG, very big channel, and he's a truther, but he believes that truthers who don't believe in climate change are going in the wrong direction. So you have this dialectic where left believes in climate change, right believes in geoengineering. You have MTG saying they control the weather. They cloud seeded and created the hurricane. So both sides agree that this weather is out of the ordinary. You have unanimous agreement left and right. They're both clamoring about how this weather is so bad, it's so terrible. But one side says the government did it. The other side says the private sector did it. The left blames the private sector. It blames capitalism and your carbon footprint. It blames our economic system for the weather. The right blames the government. You see, this is just template. But here's the MSM Plus take. Since they both believe whatever they see on the screen, they have to assume this is worse than ever. So 9MM SMG, even though he's a right-winger, he's believing in climate change. He's not accepting the idea that this is cloud seeding. But listen to this. This is the MSM Plus. This is the non-skeptical take. He says, climate change is real, and the severe weather is the result of it. The punishment is coming from God. It's not that they're targeting Republicans with cloud seeding. So he's accepting it's real, but he's saying it's God's fault. He says you cannot believe in the Bible and think God punishing us with weather is far-fetched. So here's the takeaway. The right wing will believe either A, it's happening, but it's caused by the secret government, or it's happening and it's caused by God. In both instances, they believe it. So it's like Noah's flood all over again. Now, look at this juxtaposition. So he's basically saying this is Noah's flood, just like the Old Testament. But if you're on the left, you do have another Noah's flood to refer to, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA. So NOAA is the prediction service that tells us about the flood, sea levels rising, and climate change. This is, of course, tied in with the scientific paradigm. So it's Noah's flood or Noah's flood, take your pick. Both of these are psyop takes on natural phenomenon. That's my point. Both of them are wrong. Algae Rhythm, yeah, good one. Algae Rhythm says, truthers are needed for controlled dialectics to work, though. Yeah, truthers are the other side. So that's why I'm saying that if you want to be skeptical, you have to be anti-anti as well as anti-pro. The pro position, like pro-MSM, is wrong, but the anti-MSM is similarly wrong, and they're wrong for the same reasons. Automatically believing. This is the passive consumption of news media, passively accepting the premise that's established. Both of them are wrong for that reason. The active position is anti-anti and anti-pro. The anti is a reflexive, knee-jerk, automatic position. It's a predictable stance. And you shouldn't be predictable as part of a group. You shouldn't have the hive mind. You should be thinking as an individual. Now, I'm trying to come up with a term for this. I'm calling it a TikTok reaction fallacy. So a TikTok reaction fallacy is where someone plays the audio or video clip of somebody else making a baseless claim, and instead of adding substance or facts, they make a facial expression, raise an eyebrow, and tap their chin, as though appealing to their reaction somehow bolsters the claim, or makes it seem like there's something to it. So I'm calling it the TikTok reaction fallacy. It's kind of like a loaded question, and it assumes a premise has been established. So in this case, let me play this video.
Between 70 and 80,000, we plan to evacuate between 70 and 80,000 people.
So it's a TikTok clip. We'll play it one more time. He says, we're going to evacuate.
We plan to execute between 70 and 80,000. We plan to evacuate between 70 and 80,000.
So she makes the crazy eyes to highlight that he said execute, not evacuate. So what's the loaded premise here? The idea here is a couple of things you could extrapolate from this. First thing, this person is far right fringe. This is not a leftist. This is not a normie. This is someone who has it built into her worldview that FEMA runs concentration camps and kills people and kills patriots. that FEMA is blocking relief aid from MAGAs with helicopters and mules trying to save people. So her facial expression here is just to emphasize that there's something to it when this guy misspoke, that he actually said the quiet part out loud, that here comes the FEMA coffins, they're going to kill us all. So I'm calling this a TikTok reaction fallacy. I mean, I don't know. Just when I see somebody throwing their face out there and playing something, she's not refuting it. She's not adding to it. But again, she's just forwarding the loaded premise here, like a loaded question. What are they spraying? Austin 108 said he meant to execute a plan to evacuate. Yeah, I hate TikTok. And they always use the same ominous background music. Algae Rhythm says TikTok's full of generative AI. Those accounts look like real people, but they aren't. Yeah, that could be fake. That person right there might be fake. I should upload a video of myself making crazy eyes and nodding at the screen with her face right there in the middle. And I'll point to something about how military intelligence are social engineering us with fake people. This TikTok influencer does not exist.com. There's probably a website where you render these people. There are already. You could text generate better video content than this. Not a real face. One other point to add here is that most of these TikTok video clips that we see are posted by people other than the original uploader. So this is like a second-hand borrowed facial expression. But if you look at the comments, this stuff works. For example, LS Nip says, FEMA is not created for the people. How has no one ever noticed that when they go into a disaster area, children go missing? These children have no other family. Who runs FEMA Homeland Security? So they're going after the children. And I've heard many stories about this as well. Truthers are saying there's thousands of missing children, but they're lying about the body counts. Just like with Maui. And with Maui, it was the same thing. You saw people who probably weren't even there, just sitting in their cars reading scripts about the missing dead kids, the missing children. Yep, exactly. The TikTokification of the American mind, copacetic. And when I say TikTokification, what we're talking about here is Huxley's sea of irrelevance. They flood the zone with so much unverified information that it's pretty much choose your own apocalypse. Just do-it-yourself brainwashing. Absorb as much as you can. As long as it's anti-mainstream, you're in alt media, you're in that universe. So the mainstreamers are passive recipients of programming, of brainwashing, but so too are the alt media, but they're just a little more active about it. Like, hey, these people who think too much, they're not just going to sit down and believe whatever you project on the screen. So what you've got to do is you've got to drop breadcrumbs everywhere, and they'll go pick it up and think they discovered it for themselves. They self-brainwash. Freddie says, Truthstream Media YouTube channel also pushing hurricane disinfo just after the hurricane hit. Yeah, I think we should point out that people who are exaggerating and hyping natural disasters for clicks are disgusting and lower than MSM. Yep. I would even say that geoengineering alarmists are worse than climate change alarmists at this point. And speaking of climate change alarmists, have you all seen Greta recently? She's now on some other kick. They've given her a new script. She's no longer about saving Mother Earth. Now she's about saving Palestine. I'll find a clip of her here soon. No, here's an example. So MTG says the Earth is warming. So this is an example. She's anti-mainstream, so she's automatically correct, right? Oh, follow her. No, her anti-mainstream position accepts the mainstream proposition. Earth is warming up, but she says it is, but it's a good thing. So you accept the premise, but take an alternative spin. This is why I say in axiom 47 of autohoaxology that if it's a bifurcated psyop, if both sides agree about it but just have different takes, then it's fake.
This earth warming and carbon is actually healthy for us. It helps us to feed people. It helps keep people alive. It helps. The earth is more green than it was years and years ago, and that's because of the earth warming. That's because of carbon.
All right. Basically, the anti-position in a nutshell. We agree with it, but we disagree on the cause. We're going to blame government. And, of course, they blame private sector. So this is, again, just typical. This is the Controlled Opposition Starter Pack. So if you want to be a follower of Controlled Opposition, you want to collect them all. You got Elon Musk, Jordan Peterson, Alex Jones, and Andrew Tate. Someone should actually make these, like Illuminati playing cards, but all the controlled op agents. All right, I'm going to go through my Twitter feed. I highlighted a lot of important information. A lot of interesting people showing up at So right before January 6, 2021, MAGA influencer Mindy Robinson was hanging out at some secret meeting. And is that Nick Fuentes there? And Ollie Alexander, all the gropers and groypers and groomers. It's like this groomers ball. And they were all very much aware that the next day there was going to be a huge psyop. They all knew. But this particular character blocked me on Twitter. And that's because I effectively called her out as a controlled op agent for the Vegas psyop. She runs the story that, oh, people did die in Vegas, but it wasn't Stephen Paddock. It was the black helicopter. I think High Impact Flicks runs with that line as well. That's not true. Nobody died. Nobody dies at fake events. These are not false flags. But she's been tasked with promoting that particular version of that event. And I got blocked over it. But I'm not surprised to see her as a part of this staged and fake event. Here's Elon Musk joking about Kamala and why it's funny that nobody would think to...
Which is like nobody's even bothering to try to kill Kamala because it's pointless. What do you achieve? Nothing.
No, it's totally
Just find
right.
another puppet.
Exactly. There's
no point in...
But it's important to keep in mind that just because they're entertaining doesn't mean they're on your side. The purpose of entertaining you is just to hook you into these narratives and get you to accept the premise, to keep you in their world. But they know that they're part of the simulation. They're CIA and higher. So Greta Thunberg transitioned from being a climate warrior to being involved in Middle East politics. Here's a picture of her. Greta Thunberg can go to hell. I refuse to watch anything that the delete millionaires say or do. Yeah, okay. Obviously, she's an actress. And I would say that she's a programmer to the extent that she's part of the apparatus, like Kyle Rittenhouse. They're actors on the world stage. And you know, she and Kyle have the same birthday. They were both extracted from the vat on the same day, January 3rd, 2003. And they were placed on opposite sides, diametrically opposed, left and right. You will grow up to be the poster child of the worst that this party has to offer. You're going to exemplify it. You're going to be a paragon of everything the other side hates. And you will be unavoidable, and you'll be plastered all over the screens. And that's what they've done with these two characters. And I say characters advisedly. Algae Rhythm says, how do you cope with the fake world in your day-to-day life? Well, the world's not fake. It's real. And the people who are trying to convince you of this world stage reality, this simulation, who want to superimpose it over your real world, have interests in taking the real world from you. They have every interest in keeping you basement bound, locked down, and immersed in the metaverse. But how do you cope with it? I would argue, or I would say it's probably more difficult to cope with the delusion that it's all real. Like the people who inhabit the simulation have a harder time. Higher stress levels, nocebo effects, psychosomatics, stress-related conditions. We're talking complex post-traumatic stress syndrome, MK Ultra. Not to mention the general coerciveness of it all. I don't think any of it's mentally healthy. But that's just part of the process here. Keeping the masses subjugated and terrified of things that don't exist. Instrumentum regni, the instrument of monarchy. It's the superstition that maintains the cohesion of the Roman state, Polybius. And that's what we're looking at, superstition. Noah's flood, Old Testament or part of the scientific paradigm. Take your pick. As long as you believe in one, they don't care. You blame Gaia, you blame God, either way you're on the same page. As long as you trust it. Non-believers are not welcome. And I made this distinction, I pointed this out at AutoHoaxCon 1. The world stage consists of acknowledged ideas, mainstream and alternative. All these banned people, like Alex Jones, banned, censored, fined, silenced, etc. Well, no, he's acknowledged. He's part of the major paradigm. He's part of January 6th, one of the main historic events of our age, of this time. So he's not a censored person. He exists. He's a huge part of the show. But he's acknowledged. Whereas skepticism, at the level we're exercising it and applying it, is not acknowledged. It doesn't exist on the world stage. Algorithm says, Elon Musk, Pentagon's biggest military contractor, DARPA, NSA frontman to bring the stuff out of the basement. He hasn't invented a thing. He's not even a real right-wing shitposter. He's pretending. It's a LARP. I'm pretty sure his politics are consistent with Grimes and Thelema, OTO, Mystery Babylon. There's a lot of Jack Parsons built into that character. They de-emphasized his use of drugs, recreational drugs, hallucinogens, but if you dig, you can find stuff in his past. I think he's an amalgamation of Willy Wonka, Jack Parsons, Werner von Braun, Tony Stark, Iron Man, and Constantine. But I would also point out his purchase of X isn't the act of one rich billionaire, the richest man in the world, just wanting to flex and have some fun. No, this is a military operation. It's part of the introduction of the mind virus concept to the masses. They need the public, left and right, to agree that mind viruses exist. And now they do. Elon Musk has promoted books like, recently he promoted this book, The Mind Parasite, about the woke mind virus. Why is he doing this? Because they need the left and right to believe in mind viruses. So they both agree that, oh, because these exist, we must therefore make certain provisions. We make certain changes. Perhaps a little bit of censorship so that the mentally ill don't catch these mind viruses and act on them. And you'll notice every time there's a mass shooting, the left says it's gun culture and the Second Amendment. And what does the right say? Every single time. Every controlled opposition right-winger will say, that shooter was mentally ill. That shooter was probably MK Ultra given SSRIs by a psychiatrist sent by the deep state to turn them into a shooter. The right wing has all kinds of narratives that believe in mentally ill mass shooters. So they've accepted the premise that some people will do this crazy thing if provoked. That's what has been accepted by both sides. Exactly, algorithms. The banning of drones is part of the theater to make it more believable. And it's meant to be a threat. It's meant to have a chilling effect. Like nobody wants to talk bad about the Sandy Hookers now because you don't want to get sued. But see, I would never get sued because I'm not going to be acknowledged. The position that we take here will never be acknowledged by the mainstream. And I think they've infused Trutherville with a lot of everything is fake-ism to distract from auto-hoaxing. The people who say everything's fake, that look, J.D. Vance is fake, he's just an actor. Like, no, that's why I said that's a useless meme. It doesn't add anything to the conversation. But that kind of stuff is meant to create a fog. It's the fog of Psywar. Okay, just a few more minutes here. Breaking ISS images display Hurricane Milton half the size of the entire Earth. Does this look real to anybody? It doesn't even look slightly real to me. And I want to point this out too. A lot of people look at the screen and they see this big fireball graphic, like a giant. It looks like a fireball. The storms they create. Sometimes they look like skulls. They create these big, scary satellite images, and they just accept that as that's what's happening on the ground. And I'm like, no, that's a filter. The biggest mistake that people make, and this is a mistake that everyone makes at some until they become a little more skeptical, is that they see the screen as a window. You're not looking through a window at the Earth from 200 miles above. No, this is a filter. You don't know what's on the other side. Is this even a video camera? Or is it a camera view within a 3D simulation? Is this a movie screen on a movie set with some prop? That would be my guess. But in no way am I even remotely convinced that this is a camera view from a craft 200 miles above the Earth. Doesn't look real to me. And Elon Musk, by the way, has admitted twice now in the last week, Elon Musk has admitted that the footage from space looks like CGI. So if you say that I'm a crazy conspiracy theorist for saying that it looks like CGI, Elon Musk is a crazy conspiracy theorist because he agrees it looks like CGI. That is a fact. It is objectively true that their footage from space looks fake. That is just a fact. If you don't like that fact, I mean, I don't know who you can complain to. Here's some more hype from a controlled opposition operative health ranger. He says FEMA is paying private security firms to prevent Floridians to returning home to push them out. He says, this is the escalation as the federal government wages war against the American people. As we saw FEMA carrying out in North Carolina, hindering rescue efforts. Do not escalate, hold your ground. This is a January 6th style trap to provoke an insurrection and declare martial law, and to cancel the election. So Health Ranger, frequent guest on Infowars, in my opinion, not looking super healthy for someone going by Health Ranger. He looks like he's been eaten up by a lot of paranoia. Maybe taking too many red pills. He should cut back on that, or the hopium. It just looks sickly. But my point here is that he's suggesting that this is going to be a January 6th setup. January 6th was not a setup. It was staged. Roxy said, I saw AJ on Tim Pool. He's right again, I'm afraid. All these megalithic societies end up sacrificing kids. Dirk says space looks fake because it's fake. Yeah, it's religious art. When I look at the space footage, what I see is religion. It's the religion of Nasatology. And they have to show you the images of their glorious heaven. That way, you believe it's real. You believe everything they say because they've been there. They have God's eyes view. They can say, hey, from up here, looking pretty bad. Look what you capitalists did. Look what you consumers did. Look what all that freedom did. You and your carbon footprints, driving around in your gas guzzlers, you have done this to Gaia. This is Gaia's revenge. And then they have Noah telling them there's going to be a flood if you don't cut back on your wickedness, cut back on your wicked ways, or there's going to be a flood sent by Gaia. And here they're showing us the flood. Smarty Pants says CGI looks like CGI, basically Elon Musk. Yeah, and the reason he did it is this. Because we're right, and we're being absolutely factual when we say it looks like CGI. So they want to take that away from us. So here we have this cudgel that we just keep hitting them on the head with. It looks like CGI, it looks like CGI. He took it from us. And he's like, yeah, it does. But it's real. So it's a form of gaslighting, expertly done. And that's that's his job. You know, he's part of the space papacy, and you know, people can want, you know, maybe underestimate the significance of him because he acts so clownish and he's jumping around on the stage behind Trump, cringe-entertaining and all that. But the fact of it is, the space program is ground zero for mass mind control. It's ultimately worldview warfare. And when they showed you the face of Gaia in 1972 with the blue marble, when they showed you the face of God, that kicked off the modern environmentalist movement. And there are some indications that they may use environmentalism as an excuse for ubiquitous lockdowns. In fact, I wrote this article in 2017, Elon Musk, the Martian Pope. And I put it out there suggesting this. Here's the plan the technocrats have in store for humanity. Wrath of Globe. Wrath of Globe. Climate change will be exaggerated to gain compliance for increased governmental controls over the private sector and individual. And eco-fascist measures will allow the government to act as savior. They may or may not precipitate actual climate change in order to cull the population. At that time, I was debating it. Can they precipitate it? But the idea was they're going to use this as a unifying issue to justify this transition into a more sustainable way of life. Musk, Mars' first pope. This all ties into Wernher von Braun, who wrote the book Mars, A Technical Tale, about the first colonies on Mars set up like the papacy. And on these colonies, it's led by these persons called the Elons. But space communism is an old concept. The idea is Mars is like the proving ground for the perfect society. It's a utopian thing. It's a utopian vision. And space utopianism is really what we're looking at. Like, what is heaven? Heaven is a perfect version of the world. And you want to aspire to that. Now, heaven doesn't have to be attainable to us now for us to want to live like that. That's the idea with the Mars project. Convince them that this is the perfect way to live, and then convince us that we need to live on Earth as they do on Mars. The Incompletist says politicians are the equivalent of the magician's distractive assistant, dark magicians using chaos magic on the masses. The spells don't need to catch all just enough. Well, chaos magic is something that would be worth studying if you're trying to understand the intersection of media and magic. The concept of chaos magic refers to the, as far as the magical philosophy it espouses, the idea is that worldviews and belief systems are entirely subjective, and that if you can convince yourself or put yourself in a different worldview, you can access other parts of yourself. So the idea is that we have a natural psychic sensor, and chaos magic suggests that you can break it by looking at things in entirely different ways, that there's certain imposed limitations, but that worldviews are entirely subjective, that you can break these patterns or you can be locked into it in a rigid way. And the chaos magician is someone who isn't constrained by false models. But it gets into models, like what's your model of reality and how does that serve you? And the chaos magic paradigm it strips away religious trappings and ancient superstitions or traditional beliefs, and it gets into the fundamentals of magical practice, like almost gets into like NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, which is all about your belief systems, your internal representation of the world, and modifying that. So the idea is that if you can change your internal model of the world, you can radically alter your behavior. And I think that's kind of what we're looking at here, where our internal model of the world is the world stage. That's why I'm saying that the world is real, but they want you to be metaverse dominant. They want you to go into their particular model they've given us. And their model is one that's constrained by global threats, ubiquitous threats. And we're in the end times. Like when I say that we're in a doomsday cult globally, I always emphasize that we're in a doomsday cult. And if you don't believe we're in the end times, then you don't believe what the scientists are telling you. So it is intrinsic to this model that you have to believe it's going to end, whether God's going to do it or man's going to do it through his actions that cause Gaia to overreact. It's a reaction. But in any case, we deserve it. Noah's flood or Noah's flood. All right, this has been great. We're going to be live tomorrow. I just wanted to catch up on a few things. I posted a lot of archives. We'll have a lot more to go over tomorrow. I wanted to talk about Garth Brooks' serial killer. Didn't get around to that. And I wanted to get more into the Francis Ford Coppola connections between Megalopolis, Donald Trump, the next 9/11. And of course, the election is just about a month away. And someone had mentioned the Penguin series and the timing of it and how it corresponds to the 2022 Batman flood. And it does align perfectly with 11/5. Very interesting. Yeah, I'll try to be on earlier. I spent most of my day painting. I put this out in the newsletter. So if you are shopping for any kind of cyborg apocalypse penguin art, I know a guy. I posted a link. And these are all watercolors. I switched to watercolor from acrylic because it dries faster and I get more done in a day. But these are all 9x12 acrylic on watercolor paper, AI generated concepts, but the prompts are generally related to cyborg penguins. Freddie says this is the most important election in 4 years. Yeah, it's Megalopolis, but in the movie, they have the Magas. But the Magas are saying make Rome great again. And then it's Megalon. So Megalon is definitely Magalon. Definitely. And the other thing too, the main character is definitely representing Trump. Caesar's representing Trump. But visually, Hamilton Cassius with the golden statue and his children provides the visual component for Trump. I would recommend Megalopolis if you want to do a scene-by-scene breakdown of it. It's just thick. It's rich with symbolism. Joker 2 can't be separated from what's happening on the world stage. It says the world's a stage right there on the tagline, but remember the mob scene outside the courthouse was filmed while Trump was in there on Heath Ledger's 44th birthday on 4/4/2023, the 55th anniversary of MLK's assassination, all kinds of martyr stuff. And there is this Christification martyrdom of Joaquin Phoenix, which is a predictable component. If Joaquin Phoenix is in it, there's going to be some Christ typology superimposed there. All right, this has been great. I wish I had more time, but I have to go do my Uber gig. Freddie says the Democrats think Trump's going to ruin America, therefore, ipso facto, they're the saviors, as the right believes Trump is the literal savior. They both believe the same thing. Yes, that's the point here. The anti and the pro have common points of agreement, and these common points of agreement are the these are the parameters. Like they both agree in the big problem, they just disagree on the solutions, but they need that dialectic. They need that tug of war. There aren't any non-believers. So you got believers and alt-believers. Non-believers aren't allowed a place at the table. Even truthers didn't like non-believers. Like, oh, you don't find these crisis actors compelling? If it's real, you're going to hurt their feelings. You should keep your mouth shut. And it's like, I'm not going to be emotionally manipulated into not calling it like I see it. This is AutoHoax Chief Crow. I'll send out the archives in the morning, and I'm going to be recording some YouTube shorts now that they've extended them to 3 minutes and have a lot of ideas. So I'm going to be putting a lot of these concepts into 3-minute or shorter shorts. So you can look forward to that. And thanks again for all of those who have become members of the channel. Couldn't do it without the support. And we'll see you tomorrow.
I'm on auto hoax and it feels so good. You just auto believe everything like I knew that you would. time, baby, for another crisis actor with soulless eyes.
My buddy, my buddy and me.
Telecommunications Act of 1996.
96, y'all.
Gonna filter your eyes and scrub your mind. The weatherman, he's just another bad joke. You can be a doomed little donkey like Eeyore. I'm gonna be an auto hoax, and it feels so good. You just ought to believe everything like I knew that you would. In my dream, you know I ain't got time.